Are you having address?
Yeah.
So it's village residents only?
I'm calling whoever signed up to speak, they want to speak, because there are people here that are not part of the village who have requested to speak.
I'm sorry.
There are people here who are not part of the village who have requested to speak.
Right.
Anyone who signed up.
Anybody who signs up will be allowed to speak.
Okay, but
Okay.
they're going to identify where they're from.
I'll go through that.
Okay.
All right. So it's great to have such a wonderful turnout for something that's so important to the village. This means a lot to who Rhinebeck is. It says a lot about what Rhinebeck stands for. And it's important to hear your input as we make these decisions to move forward for the village of Rhinebeck. While you speak, the rules, here's the rules. The rules are, you're going to be limited to 3 minutes or less to speak. If somebody has already said what you want to say, you still can come up and speak, but please acknowledge that it's been said before and you either agree or you disagree and move on. There's no need to repeat something that's already been said before. We're going to have a lot of people who want to speak, and so if we want everybody to be heard, we got to be respectful of their time. I'm also asking that there is no clapping, no cheering, no nothing for a speaker, right? This is not a rally. This is a public forum, and clapping and cheering this is not the place for that. So please be respectful of everybody when they come to speak. Give them their time, give them their space, and allow them the time to speak. Are there any questions?
Great.
Are you ready?
As well as
Martina, are you ready?
ready.
Are you ready? All right. We're going to commence the meeting now. I would like everybody to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So you will notice that there's several board members that are not here tonight. Vanessa Bertozzi, Trustee Bertozzi, had a long scheduled family vacation which was postponed several times during COVID. She finally got the opportunity to take the trip of a lifetime to Italy with her family, and so we're happy that she could not be here. Trustee Lewis, unfortunately, had a death in his family. Right? And those of you who have dealt with the town, you may know John Goutier, who was the town clerk for many, many years over next door to town, passed away this weekend. And John and Rick were as close as brothers could possibly be without being brothers, but related. So I'd just like to have a moment of silence for John Goutier and a blessing for his family. Thank you. Trustee Nuneker had an obligation to attend a baseball game with his daughter and chose not to come this evening to attend this meeting and go to the baseball game. So you're left with Trustee Slavy and myself, but it's okay. It's a public forum. We're here to take input. It's all going to be on Panda for you to watch and to play back. And in addition, we received how many emails? I don't know.
At least a dozen so far.
Lots of emails and letters, which we have not all read, but we have created a public site that will be accessible and be released to everybody so you can all read the correspondence as well. Because we will probably not have time to get through the correspondence this evening. All right? So here's the agenda. The agenda is going to be, first, we've been working with our village engineer, Ty and Bond, Brandy Nelson, who has prepared a slide presentation of what we think outdoor dining could and should look like for the village of Rhinebeck if it were to happen. Okay? After her presentation, we will go into the public comment session. After that, we will have a discussion with our attorney, David Gordon, who will advise us on what the process is for us to be able to move forward if we so choose to move forward. All right? So that'll be the forum for this evening. I hope you can stay for the whole event. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you on your opinion. So with that, I'd like to get started with Brandy Nelson from Ty and Bond.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Gary said, I'm Brandy Nelson. I'm a consulting engineer with Ty and Bond, and we are working with the village on a number of different issues in both the engineering and planning space, one being outdoor dining, potentially on the sidewalks here in the village. And so what we wanted to do was just give you all a little bit of information about what other communities are doing. So this isn't, Rhinebeck wouldn't be the first community to have outdoor dining. I'm sure many of you have traveled and experienced outdoor dining in other communities. And some communities have been doing this for a very long time and have established some sets of standards and ground rules, in addition to the ground rules that we would need to follow anyway regarding ADA access, so accessible routes for individuals with mobility disabilities, and building code requirements. So I'll just run through a few slides here. Most of it is graphics for you to look at, just to give you an idea of what outdoor dining could look like. And then we've concluded with a suggested configuration, potentially, to consider. And then we'll turn it back over to Gary to take input from the public. All right, so Village of Rhinebeck, outdoor dining. So as I said, our objective for the village is to look at providing additional function for the space on the sidewalk. This would not include anything that you had through COVID, where there were dining activities in on-street parking spaces. So we're only talking exclusively about the sidewalk space. So duality of function for both pedestrian accessibility, which is a primary function, as well as commercial activity, and what we call with planning like a placemaking lounge space, dining space. And the objective would be to create a really vibrant center, particularly during the warmer months, and make sure that the walking experience throughout the village is positive for everyone. So we had just taken some pictures of the community at various times and taken a few of these images offline, but many of you are familiar with what Market Street looks like, and some of these images show some of the dining areas, both along Market Street, but also along Route 9 as well. So in addition, we may discuss how this affects some of the retail function with the sidewalk use for spillover of retail space onto the sidewalk. There's a number of different communities that we looked at as potential models. We contacted Dutchess County Planning and asked them, first of all, does the county have any guidance that they would recommend? They don't have any written guidance, but they did give us a couple of good suggestions. They sent us some guidance from San Diego and from Salt Lake. We also looked at guidance from New York City, from Boston, Massachusetts, from Richmond, Virginia, and from the National Association of Transportation Officials for Cities and Towns. So there's lots of different standards that are out there. As we looked at these different standards, we found some common themes, things to keep in mind if we're going to consider this in Rhinebeck. Generally, there's a walkway width that's maintained that's 5 feet wide on the public sidewalk. Now, ADA requires you have at least a 3-foot wide width, and every 200 feet you have a 5-foot wide width to allow for passing. If you've got the space, we'd want to have 5 feet, but you could have short stretches of 3 feet. Generally, we also saw that where you were going to go into an establishment where there'd be a restaurant or a retail space, that you want to maintain a walkway width there that would be perpendicular to the sidewalk of 3 to 4 feet. In addition, any space where you're serving alcohol needs to have a barrier that encloses it, and you've probably seen these at different outdoor cafes. They tend to be either a stretched fabric or a aluminum that's slender and about 3 feet tall, usually has weighted feet, but it just defines the perimeter where food is served because you can't have open container out and about on the sidewalk. And then there are some recommendations on maintaining clear spaces between groups of tables so that servers can serve those spaces. And then making sure that everything that's installed for outdoor dining is temporary. So of course we live in the Northeast. There's seasonal limitations on outdoor dining. We don't have San Diego's climate, unfortunately. And so everything needs to be removable. We don't want anything permanently affixed to the sidewalk. So just for your mental exercise in here, here's a couple of visualizations of what those 5-foot wide sidewalks look like. The photo on the left is in Greenwich Village in New York, and what I wanted to call everyone's attention to here is that although the walkway is 5 feet, there's a short stretch. Can you see my, oh, you can't see it. Okay, there's a short stretch in here that is narrower than 5 feet where a light pole base protrudes into the walkway. So as long as you maintain at least 3 feet, you're ADA compliant. The image on the right is San Diego, California. Again, clear width with dining on either side. As far as the approach into the space, again, perpendicular to the sidewalk so that people can have clear access into the dining or retail space. We want 3 to 4 feet minimum. As far as an enclosed space for defining the dining area, there's a couple of different examples here. Some communities actually prescribe exactly what they want to see so that there's a stylistic standard. Other communities provide limitations on what can be installed. They might just say you need to have a barrier that's a certain height. Some communities allow things like planters so that you can have green space. Others just want, like I said, a low fencing defining the perimeter. So that is probably something that wants to be considered as far as the aesthetic for the summer. Some of the communities make recommendations as to the materiality that's used to define the outdoor space. So that'd be things like the type of furniture that's out there. Generally, you're looking for something that's weather resistant and durable, and also portable, so that you can stack things off to the side against the facade of the building when you're not serving, or collapse umbrellas or things like that down. Also between tables, minimum of 36 inches. So that people have room for seating back to back, and also have room for servers to serve the space without encroaching into the sidewalk, what needs to be maintained as a sidewalk space. Again, we don't want any permanent structure, so we're not going to allow anyone to affix anything to the sidewalk generally, so you want portable, durable furniture. Here's a couple of different ideas where planters are used to define that space. This one actually looks like a little bit more of a jersey barrier type space or a rope space. So again, the type of perimeter that we're going to use, I think, is something that is open for community discussion. So for the village, generally what we would recommend is maintaining that 5-foot width along the walkway, and 3 to 4 feet of space for entrances into the building. Coming up with some sort of enclosure for the outdoor dining area. One thing that we haven't discussed, but I'll just mention briefly, is that often the outdoor dining spaces are either immediately adjacent to the facade of the building or they're adjacent to the curb. If you're going to have outdoor dining spaces adjacent to the curb, you want a little bit more of a rigid barrier so that if a car is coming into parallel park, there's a very obvious secure space there to keep the car from having an interaction with the people that are dining there. In general, just in a preliminary discussion with Gary, I think our initial thought is it'd be better just to have facade side. I don't think the sidewalks in the village have adequate space to have both curbside and facade side, so we'd recommend outdoor dining would be on the facade side. And then lastly, just in terms of what outdoor dining might look like for the village, here I'll point this out. So here would be your street line. Here would be a typical street tree. From your tree to your dining space, you'd want to have a 4 to 5 foot minimum there. You could get away with minimum of 3 in just a few short areas. There'd be nothing that would happen on the curb side. We'd look at potentially facade side dining, maintaining a 3 to 4 foot width into the building, again perpendicular to the street, and then a 3 foot minimum if there were going to be 2 rows of tables. The size of the tables obviously could vary. It could be a table for 2 or a table for 4, so that'd be something that would have to be worked out based on the available space that someone had in front of their establishment. Right. That is the overall, and I don't know if you want to go back to just a picture to look at, or if you want to stay on the little sketch, or what would we talk
The back recommendations.
Yeah, the recommendations, you can leave them up, it's a great suggestions. So I realize that this is the first time a lot of you have seen this, right? Of what the village engineers have drafted for the village of Rhinebeck. We would like to have your comments limited to this discussion or this presentation that you just saw, right? Because anything outside of that really doesn't pertain. If we were to do anything, we will follow the recommendations of our village engineers. So comment outside of that, just please refrain from that. Again, we will not be responding to your questions. We want to get through this. So if you want to enter into a dialogue, you can come and meet with us at any time, and we can have a dialogue and have a presentation and talk about anything if you want to go into a deep discussion. So again, comments 3 minutes or less, okay? If the comment has already been made, you're still welcome to come up, acknowledge the comment that was made. You can give your opinion for or against, and then just please move on so we can allow time for everybody else to come up and speak, right? All right, I'm going to go forward. That's my first one. So I'm happy to also announce that we have Lisa, I don't know, forget your last name, but Taratone from Taconic Resources. Lisa is a valuable resource, and she's commented on many aspects of handicap availability and ADA accessibility at both the village, city, state, and federal level. Early on, when we started the process, we reached out to Lisa and asked her to be part of our comprehensive plan, which is how do we look at this going forward. So we're happy that Lisa is here tonight. We're happy that Lisa has joined us in our comprehensive plan. And so, Lisa, I'm going to turn the floor to you, and rules still apply.
Okay, thank you so much, Mayor. Yes, my name is Lisa Tarek. I'm Executive Director of Taconic Resource for Independence, and and I want to thank the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to provide comments on sidewalk cafe retail accessibility in the village of Rhinebeck, and also for that great PowerPoint and for the village acknowledging that they're going to ensure ADA compliance going forward. That stated, I want to just use my time to provide my personal experience as a wheelchair user when navigating a community setting, and this community setting will be Rhinebeck. Again, I just want to stress that I do acknowledge the city, the village, for moving forward to ensure ADA compliance, but this is my personal experience just as an informational, just to provide information on what it's like for a wheelchair user navigating barriers in the community. That barrier being Rhinebeck. On a recent afternoon when I was shopping, I was unable to enter several retail shops to shop for clothing. Even though some of these shops displayed symbols in their windows, all had stepped entries with no access. I asked my friend who I was with, who is not a wheelchair user, to enter the shops and inquire as to why they would display a disability symbol yet not provide access. They informed him, not me, I was on the sidewalk, I couldn't get in, that they would bring out a portable ramp for anyone who needed access. Of course, the problem is someone would need to enter the shop to ask for that ramp, and I was sitting on the sidewalk. If I didn't have a friend, there would be no way to get attention. In the past, I've had to ask passerby to go into a shop and ask somebody to come out. It's humiliating. All these shops had steps, and there was no way for me sitting outside to get the attention of someone. Not to mention, a portable ramp does not always justify compliance with the ADA. Fortunately, we had dinner at an outdoor restaurant since it was the summer. However, in a couple of months when the weather got colder, a lot of the restaurants were inaccessible, and I would not have been able to have dinner either. Just trying to skip ahead, we've got 3 minutes here. 32 years after the passage of the ADA, the issue of Title III and II access violations in places of public accommodations is rampant and mostly unchecked. This is important. Being denied access to a clothing store, a restaurant, a restroom, a recreational venue relegates people with disabilities to second-class citizenship status and deepens the societal perception and stigma of persons with disabilities as dependent and invisible. I would implore the Village of Rhinebeck to consider this as it begins its process of placemaking and to incorporate policy and design initiatives that enhance its community character by demonstrating that it's a progressive model, which I think it will be, for accessibility, inclusivity, and diversity. Thank you for this time to speak.
Thank you, Lisa. Did you plan that? Patrick Mueller. Patrick Mueller is also from Taconic Resources.
And if you'd like to sign up to speak, we have a sign-in sheet over there. Patrick, you can go right over there. Watch your...
Good evening, my name is Patrick Mueller. Excuse me, I had to move my mask because of my speech impediment. Thank you for today to clarify the ADA requirements and the passage of walkway to fall first. I was clear to understand. However, all the picture we saw was empty. What happened when we have a full house? Will you still have the same access path? My life partner is a wheelchair user. I walk with a gait. When a sidewalk is crowded, every time we had to ask someone to, can you please step aside, it is an inconvenience, especially for me. You have to make sure, my question is, who's going to govern when all this is in place to make sure 5 feet, 3 feet wide is clear at all times? Is the town or the village going to have someone to oversee that every day? Probably not. But all these factors need to be considered when having outdoor dining. And I was here a few weeks ago, and I pointed these things out. It needs to be accessible to all. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. John Ross, 53 Violet Place.
Is this working or?
Is it on?
It's on.
It's on. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Rossi, as the mayor said, 53 Violet Place. The 2020 and 2021 outdoor dining really didn't go far enough to support the needs of the people with disabilities. So it's really heartening to see this evening that the village is giving very real consideration, as is our community, to the needs of the people with disabilities. So I'm here because I work as a volunteer for the same organization that Patrick and Lisa work for. Lisa, of course, is the executive director. And I'm also here as a resident. And I wanted to just raise quickly a couple of things that we heard 2 weeks ago when presented by the Chamber. And that was that there's still financial hardship that's being felt by some of the restaurants that cannot accommodate outdoor dining, unlike the restaurants that have outdoor dining. So it occurred to me that a lot of funding has come in from the federal government to support our businesses. In fact, it's all public domain information. About $44 million in PPP, payroll protection funds, payroll protection plan money has come into the village to support our businesses. And that includes our restaurants. And full disclosure, that includes me. I'm a small business. More full disclosure, I got $14,000. The average amount that a business in the village and the town of Rhinebeck got, a business, was actually about $100,000, some much greater than that. But clearly, there's still financial pain. Now, for the restaurants that are experiencing financial pain, let me just put this out as a quick suggestion. I'm cognitive of my time. The city of Ogdenburg, upstate New York, they've used some of their ARP money, which is different from the CARES money for the PPP. The ARP money has been awarded to municipalities. We have, and the board will correct me if I'm wrong, but we have about $260,000 in ARP money that was 130 that we already have. We've used 30, so we have 100,000 in the bank. We've got a commitment for another 131. Maybe there's a way to use some of those funds to help compensate or help the needs of some of the restaurants that are, still feeling some physical strain. If we could do that, maybe that closes some of the gap that you're hoping to fill with outdoor dining, and turn us back to the planning board, or I'm sorry, the comprehensive plan that's being chaired by Trustee Slavy, and give us a little bit more time. So anyway, that's what others are doing with their ARP money, and it's certainly something that this board could consider doing with ARP money as well to help out some of the businesses, and continue focusing on outdoor dining, but maybe just give it more time. Bottom line is, I'm mostly pleased that there was the opportunity to hear the voices of the disabled, people with disabilities at the table for the first time. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Pat Evans, 16 Summer Drive.
Gary, thank you for the opportunity, and Lydia. The thing that wasn't mentioned in the presentation, and I am going to go back because I don't think many of you were here at the April 12th meeting of the board when this came up. The petitions were given to the board, and then there was a discussion about the chamber acting as a sponsor for some sort of event, and that they would be involved, or they would be representing the restaurants in this process. I don't know where that stands. That isn't part of what you're talking about, but I think it's important for people to get a little perspective about what has happened up to this point. There was also discussion amongst the trustees about, they're talking about maybe, 2 top tables in front of the restaurants, in front of the facades. Now that's different from what's being presented here. I just think that it's important to get some perspective. At the May 10th board meeting, a member of the chamber, local restaurateur, showed up. There was no plan presented by the chamber, and there were discussions then about putting 2 or 3 two-tops in front of the restaurants. That's what was discussed, just so everybody has an idea, and it's different from what this is. So, having said all that, my comments are very similar to what I've mentioned before. If this is going to work, it's got to be enforced, in my opinion. And I don't think that there was much enforcement during the last 2 years. To read the regulations from last year, the village zoning enforcement officer would warn the business that its outdoor permit may be suspended for continued violations, and that they would encourage all businesses to abide by the spirit of this requirement. And if there are violations, the board will consider revoking the outdoor seating permit. So these are things that were in the 2021 plan. And my feeling is, if this is going to go forward, there should be more of a consequence if some of the businesses do not comply with what the permit states. So, as you consider this, I would just ask you to please enforce whatever regulations or applications you come up with. And as a village resident, I would also say, we like to walk the sidewalks. We like to be able to get through. And I don't think that's really happened much the last 2 years. And I just would like that to be considered in whatever plan is adopted.
Dwayne Peterson, 42 Russell.
It's Dana, not Dwayne, but that's cool.
Dana, I'm sorry.
My kids are at Chancellor. We love Rhinebeck. We've been here a long time. And the best thing about it is how dense and walkable and friendly this town is. And it really wow, what a silver lining from COVID. This town came out and was out strong and collegial, and that sidewalk dining was just tremendous. And the craziest thing is, I am pretty active on Facebook, on the Rhinebeck Moms and Dads board, and I know a lot of people were upset about parking being taken away. Your plan is so thoughtful and comprehensive, and it brings into consideration so many things about access for people with disabilities and access for people to walk. It's going to be really different than it was. I really loved how it was during the pandemic. It was really fantastic, but I get we can't go there, and I get we're going to have parking right next to the seating, and c'est la vie. But I just wanted to say, no one ever said, I really want to move to or spend my dollars in this town that has really great parking. Where they will go and spend their money and where they will go raise their family in places that have phenomenal spirit like we've seen outdoor dining. So 100% in support, outdoor dining, all of it, more of it.
Right now, please hold your applause. This is not a rally. Right? I know that's difficult for a lot of us to do, but please refrain from the applause. Eleanor, Village Green, 15B.
Hi, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not about outdoor dining. It's about using the sidewalks for outdoor dining. I've lived here for over 20 years, and many restaurants have had some form of outdoor dining for a long time. As far as I know, no one is talking about restricting the outdoor dining that has been in place for years, if not decades. Since I serve on the main committee that's reviewing the comprehensive plan, I'm trying to stay neutral until we survey the community and hear everybody out. But I do have a major concern that I've raised several times to no avail. And the question is, what and whose rules will govern sidewalk dining? Protests at the light in the village are one of the many traditions that make this a special place. At one protest, we were asked to move because we were, quote, disturbing the diners. There used to be a jazz player on the same corner, and he has moved. Presumably, he was also made to feel uncomfortable. Any zoning changes need to clearly state that no restaurant has the right to impose new rules on the use of sidewalks. Thank you.
Jim Edison, 24 Livingston Street.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Edison, 24 Livingston. I've lived in the village 40 years. I know. First of all, I'm really sorry for Lisa and her loss of John. I think the thing is that I've heard everything. I agree wholeheartedly. I think I'm all for the outdoor dining, as long as we can get the pedestrians can get by. That's the most important thing. So I'm all for it.
Kathleen Evans, 16 Solomon.
Thank you very much for the board for having us, giving us the ability to give our opinion. And like another resident here, I love outdoor dining. Love it, love it, love it, especially in a day like today. However, like the last speaker before you, we do have outdoor dining, and we have had outdoor dining. And by my count, roughly, there's only about 5 restaurants in Rhinebeck that do not have some sort of outdoor dining. There's 17 that do and have, always, without having anything on the sidewalk. There's a couple I'm not sure about. I haven't been to Willow. Krog now has something outside. Pete's, I know, is going around the corner in the alley, so is that sidewalk dining or not? But there's basically only 5. The presentation was lovely, but the one thing that struck me were there are no people that in any of those pictures, so of course it looks lovely. There's New York City, I was down there last week, I'm going to be down there next week. I've never seen a sidewalk without anybody on it. I don't know where that picture was taken, but there was no people.
Early in the morning.
Well, okay, but we're not doing dining at night early in the morning. It's going to be on a Saturday, and one of the restaurants is at a very busy, or only very busy, intersection where the light is. And I think that's going to be very problematic, as well as Cinnamon, where already you have to wait to cross by, and there are no tables outside because people are waiting to go in. So anyway, I agree with the people. I love outdoor dining. It should always be having that opportunity, but I don't think that there should be additional tables on the sidewalk. Thank you.
Piper, Winston Drive and Montgomery Road. Piper Woods, sorry.
Super quick, I just have actually, I love outdoor dining too, of course. I think it just brings a lot of life and all that stuff to Rhinebeck, which is super important for businesses across the board, retail, even office, to be honest. I mean, I get tenants all the time that are just happy to be in Rhinebeck because they can take their clients out and outside or restaurants or whatever. So it's great. I just had a question really more for either the engineer or the board. This is really just kind of for the 2022, is that the year we're in? Yes. Like public sidewalk. And I'm just wondering how you're going to kind of mesh this with private sidewalk. Because most businesses that are off, instead of Market Street, they have a bit of private and public sidewalk. Right now, if you have outdoor dining on private sidewalk, you have to go through site plan. So I'm just kind of wondering a little bit of the equity between people who only have private sidewalk versus public sidewalk. So that sort of thing. I'm wondering how you're going to mesh the two. And then my only other is just, I wasn't at last meeting, but when you're going forward with a plan, and I know you have to make ADA work, I know that well, is to really consider not just having 2-seaters. I know from square footage, and walkway and 3 feet and 5 feet, that sort of thing. But if you only have a 2-seater, you're really kind of taking away from the family atmosphere that I think Rhinebeck, that we would like to, I think, attract, not just 2-seaters, not just people without kids or, whatnot. I think you get my gist, but thank you.
I will like to comment on the one question Piper Woods brought up, because I think it's an important question. What we're talking about tonight is the rules and regulations for those that are on the public right-of-way, which is the public sidewalk. If you have private space, those businesses have already come forward and are going through the planning board process to use that process to expand whatever they have on their own private space. This is for those who are only using public thoroughfares, AKA the sidewalk.
Can people, can any of those restaurants then, if this goes forward and the plan goes forward, will they still have the same opportunity to be able to use private sidewalk in the same capacity that other restaurants can use private sidewalk?
We'll need to think about that as part of the process.
Yeah, I think TBD.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any way to turn up the microphones? It's very hard to hear.
The microphone is not on.
That microphone?
That microphone is not on.
It's on, it's just quiet.
Can we just turn it up?
Might also help if the speaker points out the radio.
No, that may help.
Raise it a little bit. Technical
It doesn't get higher. Can we turn it up?
Would that be mixing word?
It's already up.
Would that be there? It's all the way up.
Is this better? All right.
Good problem solving.
Thank you.
Becky Tyler, 15 Village Green.
Hi. Can you hear me? Is it working now? Louder? My name is Becky Tyre. I'm new to Rhinebeck, and some of you may know me as @RetailDetails on Instagram. Many more of you would know me from that than from being in town since I'm new. I'm recently retired retail consultant, writer, editor, podcaster, and speaker on all things related to small business, shopping locally, and independent retail. Although I'm retired, I'm still in contact with retailers, merchants associations, and chambers of commerce organizations across the country. This has been both inspirational and heartbreaking during the past few years during COVID. Weekly, I hear of businesses closing, most hung in as long as they could. I talked to a chamber last week that was down to, you can't hear him?
No, it's not that one.
It's not this one.
Yeah.
Do I have to hold it up? Great, okay. Most of them held on as long as they could. I talked to a chamber last week that only has one retail store and no restaurants left as members in their town. And their town has 4,200 people. And I believe that the village of Rhinebeck has less than that, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I'm new. Of course, you've seen some of that in Rhinebeck as well, for the most part, but this village has very few empty storefronts. Some of this can be attributed, I'm sure, to the leadership, to the chamber, to organizations like Enjoy Rhinebeck and Rhinebeck Responds, and to a community that values small businesses, independent retail, and the importance of eating and shopping locally. As much as my husband and I enjoy the outdoor dining options, so I do support this initiative. On a personal level, I urge the community and this board not to discount the symbiotic relationship between retail stores and restaurants. A couple of tables to offer an outdoor option to patrons can make a very big difference to a local, independently owned restaurant and to the surrounding businesses. Thank you for your time.
Alex Hannaford on behalf of Luciano Velveeta from Market Street Restaurants.
Luciano's written an essay, so I'm going to read it very quickly. In March of 2020, all our lives were changed forever. The effects will be lasting, and the very nature of our community has been reorganized in ways that many of us never thought possible. As we take inventory of these past 2 years as a village, we find that change was the only constant, and our strength as a community has been to accept, embrace, and guide that change. From Zoom to remote learning to Tiger King, the fabric of our small town and the world at large have been texturally redefined. We've lost friends and family, and we've gained new. What helped Rhinebeck weather this storm better than some other places was its commitment to the tenets of community. Openness, inclusion, collaboration, mutual support, planning, action, and above all, empathy. As I write this, I'm isolating at home instead of attending this hearing because I have COVID. I'm 39 years old, I'm in good health, and I'm triple vaccinated. Yet I've been fighting this virus for almost a week. If I were immune compromised, I might be battling for my life, and that's really the point, isn't it? There are members of our community who deserve to be safe and comfortable and enjoy all that our village has to offer, regardless of the strength of their immune system. I'll survive this, but the person I could infect by being in that room with you this evening might not. The worst is behind us, but we're far from ready to go back to pre-pandemic life. If you're following the trends, the positivity rate is rising again, and although many of us have protection from vaccines and prior infection, It's our responsibility to protect those who are most in danger. The very strength of a community is measured by how they protect their weakest members, the children, the elderly, and the ailing. The Rhinebeck I know and love for the past decade, where I own a business in the village, a business whose sole purpose is to bring people together in a convivial environment where they can break bread, share ideas, meet new people, and enjoy the aspects of life that make living in a small town special, is built on that notion. To abandon those who can't risk being here tonight in person to speak about their need to engage with the community in open outdoor restaurant spaces is to abandon what makes this village uniquely resilient in favour of convenience, aesthetics and politics. We're presented with an opportunity and a duty to reflect on where we've come from and what we've learned through this pandemic and how we can improve our community and make it more inclusive. If I were there with you tonight, I'm sure I'd see many masked faces. While the words are being read, I'd encourage you to look around the room and take note. And if you believe all these people are wearing masks so that we might be a little safer, and perhaps to protect themselves from potential infection, I implore you to reflect on that choice, and that allowing a few restaurants in our commercial district to put tables on sidewalks in the hopes of accommodating everyone in our community is the only real choice. Somewhere here in the minds and hearts of the people in this room is a solution. These are the moments in which we define who we are, and I'm hopeful that as a village we'll choose empathy over apathy, civics over aesthetics, and cooperation over antagonism. Please craft and vote on a plan that will codify sidewalk dining.
Please hold your applause. Thanks, Alex. John Traver on behalf of Barbara Schreiber.
Did you want to read Barbara's letter? And then I'll speak after. Did you want to read it?
No, you can read it.
Are you sure?
Sure.
Okay. Hello, this is on behalf of Barbara Endick Schreiber of the Rhinebeck Department Store. Thank you for taking the time to volunteer and help shape and maintain the quality of life in Rhinebeck. The demands to evolve are greater than ever. We have a greater influx of new homeowners who may have decided to take up residency because of the quality of life Rhinebeck offers. We faced the challenges of COVID-19. We all tightened our belts when we had to close our businesses and restaurants. We had to evolve and reinvent the way we do business. Even after reopening, we've not recuperated the loss of income from being closed in 2020. The streets can look busy, but it has to convert into retail sales and filling our restaurants. We pay taxes and would appreciate the needs of the downtown businesses to be respected and feel we deserve representation as community contributors on the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Please consider outdoor dining with guidelines for safety and not obstructing the sidewalks. A few merchants sat on the sidewalk sale committee many years ago, and legislation was passed that we adhere to today. Let the comprehensive plan help Rhinebeck restaurants and merchants stay relevant and recoup the losses from 2020. Sorry we are not able to attend this meeting this evening. I agree with Barbara's comments. Thank you, Dana, for your comments. And also I must say that public health is, of course, top priority, but I also think that mental health is really important. And after being closed for 3 months and then reopening in June and seeing the tables and chairs and people again, and here we are now, we're all wearing masks, which is great for everyone's public health, but we're in a weird time where things are going to be up and down, and it's just, for me personally, very uplifting to walk down the sidewalk and have spontaneous conversation with people dining. Rhinebeck is a happy place, it's a destination, and I think that outdoor dining and having a few more tables and chairs outside will keep people healthy, but I also think it's good for the mental health of people who are spending time in town.
If you have a written letter, please make sure that you either email it or hand it to Martina. Thank you.
Victor Britton, 34 South Street.
Can you hear me now? Okay, well, thank you for holding this public hearing. I really appreciate it. I think you guys are gathering a lot of information, but I know you're going to put the trust in Trustees putting something together that works. I do ask, however, that you consider putting in sunset language so that next year there could be a sort of a processing after the cool season starts, and it could be reevaluated. Some specific questions I have that came up just in terms of listening tonight. Will there be language that allows restaurants to negotiate with adjacent property owners for putting seating in front of those establishments? Do other businesses besides restaurants get to apply for this space? And consider including rules about how restaurants handle for waiting patrons, because I think some of the concerns are just about getting through, and I think on a busy Friday or Saturday night, that's when that's going to be an issue. So if whatever you guys put together addresses that, that would be good. But my biggest concern is about sunset language so that it could be reevaluated after this experiment. Thank you.
Just as a little bit of an FYI, the village currently has existing sidewalk sale laws that do allow for retailers to put a small rack out in front of their establishments. So if you see those now, that's because those have been in place, as Barbara Shriver's letter mentioned, for at least 5 years now. So just so you know, that is something that currently exists.
Leon Green. Sorry, Leon, 249 Burger Road.
That's me. I'll keep it brief. I'm a strong supporter of sidewalk dining. I think that it radically and positively transforms the neighborhood. It brings life to the streets. You bump into people that you otherwise wouldn't bump into. When we moved to Rhinebeck several years ago, one of the things that we noted in moving to Rhinebeck was that unlike many of the other Hudson Valley towns that have really vibrant downtowns, Rhinebeck had almost nobody on the street ever. You come into town, and unless you're walking into a bar where you know somebody's going to be, or into a restaurant where you know somebody's going to be, the chances of actually bumping into somebody walking down the street in Rhinebeck are pretty slim. With the transformation of the town that we saw, the village that we saw in the middle of COVID, and all of the sidewalk dining, it created a social and positive community feeling in the village that I think was lacking, aesthetically lacking. I don't mean in terms of the community itself. Prior to that. So, strong supporter of sidewalk dining. I echo, applauding the village for considering ADA, and I'd also echo, I think it's very important that the enforcement language that's written be stronger than what was read earlier by the gentleman who made that comment. I think enforcement should be clear, and it shouldn't be subjective, and it shouldn't be subject to committee interpretation or to who's got what relationships. It should be something that's akin to a zoning enforcement. There's a rule, it's broken or it's not broken. This is how many chances you get if you break it before you lose your permit. I also think that the need for visual integrity is important. I know it was mentioned in the recommendations that some places choose to specify what barriers are used and some don't. I thought that the ad hoc as it was implementation when we had it in COVID, which I understand all the reasons for, was aesthetically just a disaster. And so if we can move forward with this and find a way to create consistency in the visual aesthetic for the barriers, something low that doesn't take over the streetscape, so to speak, and that is reasonable, I think it would be a very positive benefit to this initiative. Thank you.
I have to comment because I do agree with our Jersey barriers were just god awful ugly.
It wasn't just the Jersey barriers. A lot of it, I think, was the ad hoc implementation of everything. Consistency drives aesthetics.
Michael Britt, 30 Edgewood Drive.
Right. Seems to have left. Okay.
Linda Christensen, 37 South Street.
Thanks for this opportunity to make comments on outdoor dining. First, I'd like like to say I really like outdoor dining, so I have nothing against that. But I've just gone through an exercise, which was very eye-opening, as one of the subcommittees for the Village Center. And as a result of that, what I can say is that we have 26 dining establishments, and 18 of them have outdoor dining. So nearly 70% already have outdoor dining. And because I'm on that committee, I have to say, when you look at a plan like this, what is the equity? It leaves some questions. If we allow outdoor dining, are we allowing them only for those who don't have it currently? Or are we going to allow other establishments that have outdoor dining to expand them? In addition, what does that do to our zoning around capacity planning, as basically the capacity of people in a restaurant affects the parking regulations? And it's done because it does impact parking. If you can take on twice as many people as you did before, there are more people coming into town and eating at our restaurants, which is a good thing, but the parking has to go somewhere. So there are a lot of issues around equity for this. The other question is, for retail establishments, are they impacted by the amount of traffic between the tables and the pedestrian traffic that is generated by this? So it's never as simple as saying, I like outdoor dining, I like the way it looks, it feels good in the village. It also, there are residents here, and there are impacts from it. So I would like you to answer all of those issues with this. But thank you very much for your comments. That's it. Or for your thoughts, I should say.
Leona. 1014 East Market.
Hi, thank you for the conversation. Outdoor dining came to us in a crisis. The crisis is not over, but it has improved. I have a shop on East Market Street, Winter Sun and Summer Moon, and I hear almost daily from people on how they would like to sit outside. How come there's not more outdoor seating? In many areas, the outdoor dining, in Rhinebeck, in many areas, the outdoor dining was very successful, and permanent programs are starting up all over the country to support outdoor dining. I would like to see Rhinebeck leading the way in creating a vision that will make this work in a post-pandemic world. In Rhinebeck, the restaurants drive the foot traffic. Dining in Rhinebeck is the bellwether for visitors. Every little bit of seating will help our restaurants. Outdoor dining created an atmosphere of pleasure, a welcoming experience, and some of our restaurants are fortunate enough to have outdoor seating, as have been mentioned, but there are others that are limited, and those are the restaurants that need our support, the ones who have limited outdoor seating. With considerations to good health and cleaned areas and liquor laws, I would be in favor of outdoor dining. I would be bold enough to say I would even give up a few parking spaces for outdoor dining. As a retailer, I am in favor of outdoor dining. Thank you.
Joe Kirkroyd, 41 East Market Street. Here you are, Joe.
I just want to let you guys know I'm old. Got my hat off. Got the white hair. Okay. I first would like to thank the trustees, planning board, and zoning board, because they're part of the reason why things are working out. For the gentleman who said things should be enforced and whatnot, don't worry, they'll enforce it. Okay? The poor lady and the gentleman that was handicapped, I'd be embarrassed if a merchant or a pedestrian never asked them for help. Like, Lila, you guys have a ramp that lets people in and out of their place all the time. Not all places are like that. but my grandparents would be embarrassed and my parents would be embarrassed if I never asked even an elder, besides being handicapped. Okay, I remember when I was in the restaurant, an outsider came in and said, geez, why is everybody so nice here? We just came from the East End mobile gas station. The guy pumped our gas, checked our oil, and cleaned our windshield. We're nice here because we kind of know everybody, you know? We want to be treated just like everyone else was treated. So it is different than Manhattan, and it's totally different. I respect you for, you know, saying, you know, which would be the best way to set things up. Like I said, our restaurant that I managed for my parents for 25 years, I've been in the downtown district since 1979. We had 4 tables out front of that. We never had problems with traffic. We never had problems with a handicap. The handicapped guy used to come in and make placemats for us. So everything will work out. These guys, the planning board, they really will work things out. But what I'm here to say is it has to work out because the business district supports the tax base. We need the businesses to do well. Merchants, whether you're retail or not, want restaurants here. It doesn't matter. The restaurants are the key to this village. And if this doesn't go through, we're going to be on the balls of our ass. Okay? I'm telling you right now, it really needs to go through. And also, I could save money. I used to know an attorney that would come to meetings and only charge like 50 or 100 bucks a night. If we ever have a problem, then let's an attorney look and review at the television. Okay? We don't need the guy to sit here all the time.
Josh Gordon, 6426 Montgomery Street, and 85 South First.
Hi, I'm Josh Kroner. I own Terrapin, but I'm also on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and I've been working with the Chamber to try to come up with a way to help the businesses. Now, I want to address a few of the points that I've seen, and I see there's a handful of village residents that don't like this idea. They don't like change. People don't like change, but things have changed. We had a pandemic. Everything is different now. We have to make adjustments. And the fact is that there are people that want to eat outside that do not want to go inside. I have so many customers that I used to have that will only eat outside. So to say, well, you've got outdoor seating. I have 25 outdoor seats. I have 180 seats inside, and a lot of them go empty because people don't want to eat inside anymore. There are so many restaurants that have no outdoor seating, or maybe they have a couple tables. For us to have an opportunity to increase outdoor seating, I mean, it seems like such a no-brainer, like we should be doing this. And this idea that, well, we've already got outdoor dining, and there's only 10 restaurants or 6 restaurants, or however many restaurants that don't, it should be fair for everybody. If you're a customer of Le Petit Bistro, why shouldn't you be able to eat outside? Why do you have to say, well, I'm just not going to eat there anymore? It's not fair. I mean, this actually, what we're talking about here doesn't affect me at all. I'm not going to have any sidewalk seating. But the thing is that it affects a lot of people, and I want to be able to increase this for everybody. I just want to address, I don't want to talk too long, but I want to address a couple things. That, there's a lot of talk about the enforcement of this, the policy for the ADA. We're also talking about the fact that all restaurants that serve liquor have to have a barrier. And we're talking about, and there was a comment made by Leon, which was a good comment, that we should have it consistent. It would look really nice if it was a consistent barrier. That's enforcement right there. People can't walk through the barrier. They're going to be blocked by the barrier. So that barrier will define the space. I mean, there's several things that obviously have to be worked out for this, but what Joe says is right. We got to just figure it out because this makes complete sense. It makes complete sense that we have more outdoor dining. It doesn't make any sense at all that we fight this because we don't like change. I mean, this idea that, well, most restaurants already have it, and it's this many percent. Well, how many percent of village streets don't have any restaurants on them? Almost all of them. There's just a couple streets, so maybe it's going to be a little bit of an inconvenience for people, but it's going to be a huge inconvenience for people if they can't eat outside. They don't want to eat outside. What about all of those people that are inconvenienced? What about the businesses that are being inconvenienced by losing customers because they're not allowed to have people eat outside? That's a big inconvenience. In my mind, more than the inconvenience of possibly having to walk around somebody. So anyway, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit passionate about this at this point, but I feel like this is something that we need to do. I mean, we need to act as a village. I've been in the village now for 20 years, and I'm serving in different roles with the village and the Chamber of Commerce to try to give back to the village. But I see this as something that's a huge positive, and I really hope that we get it done. And I do applaud Lydia and Gary for their work to get this done. So thank you guys very much.
Bondi, are you here? There you are. 43 Stortini Drive.
Thank you everyone for coming here today. First of all, today not many of the people who support outdoor dining couldn't be here because they don't live in town and they couldn't be here to give their opinion. And I know so many business owners who has restaurants or retail businesses in the village of Rhinebeck, but they don't live in the village, so they're not able to come here today. On few points today, and I'm so glad and so thankful for the village for letting us have outdoor dining during the pandemic. When COVID happened, I had 28 people working for me, and I could not let them go. I agree with some of the people who were here said that we got PPP loan and we got so many federal grants. It helped a lot. That's why we are in business today and we are still able to serve people. So all that helped to keep our employees and keep paying our rents. But now the COVID is back again. And right before I come to this meeting, I went through my sales for last year versus this year because I have been having this problem for last 2 weeks. My hostess says, Shivanti, I got 5 phone calls today and they asked for outdoor dining. When I said no outdoor dining, they said no thank you. And I see a big decline in my business because I don't have outdoor dining. I think it's about 15-20% every day asking about outdoor dining, and I don't have a single table outside. My fight here for today, my request here today, I might have 1 table. Looking at the presentation, allowing 5 feet, 3 feet distances in front of my restaurants, I think I have whole 5 feet, so I might not have any tables. But I think as a business owner and as a resident of this village, I think it makes the village look so much better, and it's very friendly. As someone said, we bump into people and we say, everybody's enjoying a nice meal. I think it's important to have outdoor dining. Thank you very much.
Samantha Sager, 27 Beach Street.
Hi. So I'm new to Rhinebeck. My husband and I closed on our house about a year ago. And I wanted to say that one of the reasons that we chose to move here was that coming here felt like a community. And outdoor dining made everything feel alive, made everything feel like Rhinebeck really supports their businesses. So I am in full support of outdoor dining. I think it's very clear that, ADA accessibility will be taken into account, but we should be doing everything that we can to support our small businesses. Thanks.
Giant hand. John. 67 North Parking.
Hi, I'm
I'm Johnny Lee Hayne. I've lived in the village since 2005, and been an owner of a local business on the edge of the village since 2018. It's been said before, Gary, you asked us to say if we're repeating it. Strong supporter of sidewalk dining. I'm very pleased that the trustees continue to try to find ways to be creative and expand the outdoor community dining experience that we have here in the village. So that's greatly appreciated. Of course, it's appreciated and understood that ADA and all regulations should and must be accommodated, so we appreciate that. A few responses to some other comments that I've heard here this evening. I have not heard anything in any of the regulation recommended that would double the seating for any of the restaurants in our village and along these routes. A few extra tables here and there can make all the difference to be able to say yes to one more reservation or two that night and bring those in. So I think that's really reasonable. To my knowledge, as I'll say a regular patron, Krog does not have any outdoor seating, and we'd love to see that come back. That, as you folks know, a tavern is the town square, and Krog has done a great job of becoming a town square, and we need it as big as we can so that we can have those conversations besides just in here on nights the trustees invite us in. And sidewalk dining, last thing here is that I don't think that we're breaking any other regulations here. And there was a comment that the regulation might need to take into account the amount of pedestrians on the street in any given day. The sidewalks as they stand do not take into account how many pedestrians we have on any given day. And I think the regulation should do the same. We should have a static regulation, and we should be respectful of each other in our community. Thank you very much for your time.
Corinna Barker.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for wearing masks. I wanted to say from the outset, I'm a supporter of outdoor dining. I've I think everyone's done a very good job of covering aesthetics, welcomeness, hospitality, feelings of how it feels. I wanted to stand up and show you what an immunocompromised person looks like who can't eat inside. Full stop. I have 2 children. They still wear masks everywhere. I'm lucky. I will be finished being immunocompromised sometime this summer. But there are other people who are not as lucky as I am. And I truly, Luciano's comments about all of us taking care of everybody really resonated. That's all I'd like to say.
Maureen Mister. Paper Trail, Montgomery Road.
We've had our business for 17 years in Montgomery Row, and one of the reasons we took the space in Piper's building is because of the restaurant next door to us. Gabby's happens to be a great place that everybody loves, and the outdoor aspect of it is huge, and it was even huger during COVID. We're lucky that we have Gigi's across the street who has outdoor dining already. Terrapin, Josh has outdoor dining. But I just want to say, as a merchant on the other street, not Market Street, we get, everybody comes over from Market Street. And they go to Market Street because there's lots of restaurants and shops. So we benefit from everything that happens in the village in every trajectory. So we strongly support outdoor dining. I'm sorry to repeat what other people have said, but I just think it's important to know, for everyone to know how much retail businesses that have nothing to do with restaurants depend on the restaurants. And the restaurants have really depended on outdoor dining. It just made it so great the last few years. And I hope we're able to find a way to do it going forward.
Kirsten Green.
stating for the record that I absolutely love the outdoor dining and would like to see it continue. It has brought a life to the downtown that did not exist before after sunset, and was really lacking in this town, and I think it's a good way to keep younger people moving into this town. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I didn't sign that all.
Okay, you're gonna have to give us your name and your address.
My name is Richmond Arcee. I'm at 6451 Montgomery Street. So I just wanted to listen to everybody tonight. I've been in the village for about 3 years. I work at Astor and I work a second part-time job in hospitality. A couple of things I didn't hear tonight from anybody in the room, including business owners, was the effect this is having on the staff and the people that actually live in the village as your bartenders, your servers, your bussers. Without having that extra seating capacity or losing that revenue, they may be forced to find another job, move out of the area. Also, inflation hasn't been brought up by anybody. Inflation in rents. As a village resident, my rent has gone up tremendously. I know that as business owners, you're facing the same thing. And all the workers, we're facing inflation across the board, gas prices, everything. So everybody that may be against outdoor dining, you're forgetting about the little people that this is going to affect in the end. So think about that as we're working towards that. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I don't live here, but I have a business here. Can I?
That's totally allowed.
Okay, not sure.
No?
Don't want to break the rules. Hi, everybody. My name is Elena. I own Landabas Toy Shop, 22 East Market Street. I have moved to 22 East Market Street 2 years ago. I have owned the toy shop on 41 East Market prior to that, and I have to say, when Crow was actually allowed to have those tables, it brought a huge amount of people to my little corner where before, for about 5 to 6 years, nobody knew I even existed. Local people did, but people who were visiting, if they don't see something, or tables outside, or people sat outside or shopping, nobody goes there. I was very fortunate to move to 22 East Market Street where people couldn't, see me. But if there's no restaurants and no outdoor seating, people stop coming to town, and I can just guarantee that. And nobody walks around. We have so many people who come to my shop because they're waiting for the table. They're waiting for that reservation. They're before or after their dinner, with or without the children, and they all go around. They all say hi to each other. It has been absolutely wonderful, and it saved my business 100%. Also wanted to make a remark to the person who's no longer here. I give Mr. Rossi, who said we all got PPP loans and we all got some sort of, money and help. The PPP loans and all of that money went to pay for rent and to pay for payroll, to pay those people who we are hiring, right? For the longest time, I'd never let go of anybody, not one person. Every single person who worked for me, they're still there, and every single penny went towards that and to pay my rent. None of that went into my pocket to do anything, for my leisure. So I just wanted to say it really, really saves the businesses in town, like my little tiny toy shop, and it will not survive if there is no outdoor dining, and I truly believe that. Thank you.
Yes, please. Okay.
Go ahead.
And if you want to sign up and speak, there's a sign-up sheet.
I'll be very short. I just wanted to say that we have the falafel place. We have outdoor dining of our own property. However, we do see a drop in our ability to serve people because so many people do not want to sit inside. Our place specifically is very small, but it's not only about that. People want to sit outside, and it makes a difference to others who have none or others who have some, but it's a big difference. Thank you.
You did some? Great. right, I'm going to bring another one out there. Okay, whatever.
My name's Corinne Jacobson. I have business 47 East Market Street. And so I'm next to Cinnamon, for example, and we chose to move here in the middle of the pandemic and open up our business. And it was the restaurants that brought us here. We wanted to be part of a community. We live in Woodstock and we would come here to eat. Like, that's why we came to town. And I enjoyed the atmosphere that the sidewalk dining brought to town. And it really, when everything was going on at the beginning of this, I was really concerned about the businesses because the restaurants were what brought us here and I didn't know how they would manage it. So if anybody has issues with congestion around Cinnamon, it could be us and we don't. Like, we're so happy when they had tables right in front and right next to us. So yeah, I'm definitely, as a merchant in town and new to town, really in support of the sidewalk dining. Thank you.
Hi, Ernesto Marnek, One Somers Drive. I came to this hearing to basically open-minded. After listening to what a lot of people had to say, I would like to give my support to outdoor dining. But my only concern is, we talked about aesthetics. This is a beautiful village. It's why I moved here. I've lived in Rhinebeck now for 25 years. I don't want it looking like New York City. All right, the outdoor dining out there, I saw one cute picture there, but I can tell you from going down to the city plenty of times that it looks like junk. So my only concern is that the code is clear and that we have a uniform aesthetic that is in keeping with this village and what it's about. So, thank you very much.
Hey, Ernesto. Anybody else?
Going once? Going twice?
You can go up and find out. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm Kara Kewell, 467 Akron Hook Road. And I apologize, I missed the very beginning of the presentation. So this may have been covered.
Excuse me a minute, I'm sorry. Could you ask them to either go outside to continue their conversation, please? Thank you.
So just...
It was hard to hear you, I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Two points of clarification. One is what we're deciding here now for the long term, or is it possible to take this as an opportunity to experiment in the next year while the pandemic continues to create disruption? And if we were able to explore an interim possibility, has anybody floated the idea of pedestrianizing Market Street between the traffic lights and the municipal lot, perhaps on Friday and Saturday evenings, and putting the tables in the street? So that would allow the pedestrians to come and go, and plenty of dining for the restaurants, at least in that area, not just one or two tables. That would better compensate them for the lost tables inside. Thank you.
So just so all of you know, I had a hilarious and very brief conversation with the Department of Transportation last week. For those of you who don't know, both 308 and 9 are state roads. They're not ours. And so DOT regulates them. What we did the last 2 years with the barriers is no longer allowed. And in order to do anything with those roads is going to take a lot of planning and cajoling. And so this is a two-part process. There is a comprehensive plan committee that is working on long-term stuff. And then this is just to get us through until they've done their work. What we're doing, what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
So this very much is an experiment so we can then think about it.
Thank you very much.
Yep. But I do like that idea.
Great.
Okay, this ends, I'm going to close the public comment section for this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation. All comments and suggestions are welcome and much appreciated. But now we're going to discuss, or actually have our legal, David Gordon, who is our zoning and planning legal advisor and attorney for the Village of Rhinebeck, discuss about what a local law could be and how it could possibly work for the Village of Rhinebeck.
Here, I'll give you yours back.
Okay. Good evening. A couple of people asked the question as to like short-term and long-term. Wow, stereo. I just want to very quickly clarify what we're seeing as the process. To some extent, we're reacting to a proposal that was brought to us by the Chamber on behalf of some of the businesses. And that's perceived as a fairly short-term decision-making process. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves beyond the summer. In order to really make a permanent change in the village code, we're going to need a local law. Ultimately, there's also a comprehensive plan process, but that's far enough down the road. We're talking, many months or a year or more down the road for the comprehensive plan to come forward. So ultimately, we're going to need a local law. And so what we're thinking is this, that in the short term, i.e. for the summer, and based on the proposal by the Chamber, there would be a permit process. And that will probably happen within a matter of weeks to decide what the rules are going to be, what the design is going to be, what the safeguards are going to be, and that will be a fairly short-term permit process. Almost immediately thereafter, particularly once the experience starts coming in, we're going to work on a local law. And at that point, because we're going to take a few more months with that, there's a lot more ability to incorporate information and to open things up. Some people were asking about, for instance, businesses other than on the sidewalk. That's the sort of thing that we can consider, if deemed advisable, in a local law. Also, if we have to tweak the things that we're seeing over the summer, that can be done in a local law, and that will be, I would think that we would be looking to do that certainly this year and probably, within a matter of months. So there's going to be a lot of attention paid on this, and at least two processes, even before we get to the comp plan committee, which is going to take a much longer and fuller view of it. There's going to be a permit that we're going to look at for the businesses represented by the Chamber in a fairly short term, which is going to be a little bit more narrow. And then over the next X number of months, let's say a 4 to 6 month time frame, we'll be looking at doing a local law. And both of those, by the way, especially for folks that are concerned about design and concerned about accessibility, both of those are going to be subject to what is called the seeker review process, which is essentially the environmental review process that, for example, the planning board does on every site plan approval. And so that's where you would look at things like traffic, including, in this case, foot traffic, which is probably going to be an equally important issue. That's precisely why we've hired, we've gotten our engineers involved in this, because we want the best look possible at the breadth of issues. So we're going to be looking at what I would view as a obviously it's going to be up to the village board, but my proposal would be for a multi-stage process where this is going to be essentially under constant review for much of the rest of the year. And then at the tail end, even after the code is changed, the comp plan committee will be able to look at the whole thing.
Okay.
I think good. Okay, since we do not have a quorum this evening, as obvious, so this meeting was relegated down to hearing what we had to say, hearing where we're going, hearing what's being discussed, and we're not going to make decisions this evening on any of this right now. we will be taking it up at our next board meeting and bringing forth, hopefully at that time, a proposal to enact possibly a permit process, if the board so chooses to want to do that, to move forward. So having said that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. I'd like to thank you all again for your participation in this night's listening event. It was very interesting, and I'm anxious to see how we can move forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye now.